I was in the industry for 3 years, between July of 2020 and January 2023 as an employee before I started my own business in March of 2023. So I had 3 years of historical data to support my own financial projections. And I spent almost 6 weeks perfecting those financial projections before I ever opened my doors.
Welcome to the Empowered to Grow show, where we fuel your business journey with valuable insights and expert advice. I'm Kelly Brozyna, the CEO and State Director of the New Jersey Small Business Development Center Network. And I'm excited today to introduce our special guest for today's episode, Amanda Vino. She's the founder and owner of Maven Roofing and Exterior, LLC. Amanda is a visionary community builder and social entrepreneur who has successfully driven small business growth through organic social media marketing in the construction industry. Welcome, Amanda, to be here on our Empowered to Grow show, and we're really excited to have you here today. And we've met about a year or so ago, and thought it would be really great to have a conversation being a woman in a typically male-dominated area of construction and roofing. You have broken through the glass ceiling. So let's talk a little bit about that. How did it come about? You went from a retail store to moving into construction, and tell us a little bit about your journey.
Sure. So my journey is a little chaotic. But between 2020 and 2023, that's really where I sunk my teeth into the construction industry. So when my retail store closed because of COVID in, I think it was June or July, we made the final call of 2020 to close our doors. That's really what propelled me into the construction industry, a bit out of desperation, to be honest. When we closed my store, we lost about $200,000. Wow. So with a young family, another baby on the way, my husband's a teacher, we didn't really have very many opportunities other than just putting my boots on and getting to work, and that's exactly what I did. So I pivoted into construction because it was either healthcare, medical, or construction at that point. And my own personal love of renovations and tasks and projects around our house sort of led me right into that space. And I've never looked back.
Well, that's awesome. So talk a little bit about how you went about doing that, because I'm sure there's lots of people that are around here that either have never been in business, not an entrepreneur, right? Never thought about it, or maybe have thought about it, but it's a little scary, right? You did it because you didn't have a choice. You know, you had to pivot and you had to move into that direction. First of all, why construction, why roofing? And then second, how did you go about doing that during such a challenging time? I mean, having a young family and still having new family members, right? How did you go about doing that?
So some of it was fortuitous. I did pivot into a company whose owner I knew very well. Okay. And he actually thought I was joking when I first asked if I could come work for him. And I moved into a marketing role. So I don't want people to think I immediately went into sales or actual construction. Sure. I moved into a marketing role for this company. I did that for about 6 weeks. And then we got hit by Hurricane Isaias here in New Jersey. I'm not sure if you remember, but one of the salespeople was away on vacation at the time. So I just sort of got thrown into the deep end. I knew enough to be dangerous, and I turned out to be very good at sales. So between August of 2020 through January of 2023, I sold for that company. Okay. And one of the things that I could tell people is if you can master the art of sales, you can basically write your ticket to anywhere. And I just had a propensity for selling to homeowners. I was a homeowner. I was very cost conscious at the time. Obviously, after having just lost $200,000, that was something that was always important to me. So I feel like I connected with people really well. So that's something both as a professional and as an entrepreneur that if you can master, you can basically do whatever in any industry. It comes down to sales. The other question is why construction? And I think there's always a need for construction. So if people are looking into starting their own businesses or going from an employee to an owner of something, definitely look into home services. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt that whether we're in a recession or in a boom, people need to do work on their homes. It's just a matter of how much are they willing to spend and when. But construction will always be a necessary skill and trade.
So let's dig a little bit into the sales piece to it, because you made the comment that if you can master sales, you can kind of rule the world, right? I'll take it, rule the world. But you have to have a temperament for it. You can't be an introvert and try to think that you're going to be sales. Or I guess you could be, but it's a trained extrovert that goes into it. So how did you pivot? I mean, obviously you're an outgoing person, so you don't seem too shy to me.
I'm not.
So what advice would you give people when you say sales? And people don't realize almost every part of your business, you have to have that sales piece.
Yes.
And as an owner of a small business, you have to be the CEO, you have to be the CFO, you also have to be the salesperson, right? You are only as good as how you can reiterate your product or service to the outside world. What advice would you give people that don't want to get into sales? And listen, I hear people all the time, I don't like sales, I don't want to do it, but sometimes you have to do it. So what advice would you give people on that?
So the first thing that I would always say is to back up and think about what your own personal opinion of the word sales makes you feel. So if it makes you feel dirty and you cringe when you hear the word sales, it's probably because you're thinking of the used car salesman, the door-to-door solar companies that wake you up at 7 o'clock in the morning and wake your kids up at 8 o'clock at night. That is not the type of sales that I'm talking about. I'm talking about consultative selling, having conversations with people based on their needs, actively listening during these conversations, hearing what they're saying are their pain points. If you have kids, you're selling to your children every single day, trying to influence them to make good decisions. So it's not necessarily that we're talking about transactionary sales. It could be transformational sales. It could be consultative sales. It could be having a conversation and telling people that you're really listening or showing people that you're really listening. I can't tell you how many times I go into a house and people say, thank you for educating me. Thank you for explaining what my options are. Thank you for not taking advantage of the fact that I'm a widowed 65-year-old woman who has never dealt with home improvements before. My husband always handled that. That is selling. It might not be your standard definition of sales, but it sure is selling.
Well, and all of the schemes that are out there that people deal with or have to deal with, I should say, that it's like what is real and what's not real, and what is inflated and what is a reasonable price, because obviously you need to make money for your company, right? You have to pay your bills as well. But going into the reasonableness of costs and things, is that one of sort of helping people get over the hump of you can do this, you can afford this, and do you offer them scenarios of, options for them to make it a reality, fix whatever they're trying to fix?
Absolutely. So after yesterday's market tank,
I'm
not sure when this is going to air.
I haven't looked at my 401k yet.
I'm not sure when this is airing. However, August 5th was not a good day for the market, which means that home buyers, home sellers, people who are doing anything in their homes are going to become much more cognizant of their bank accounts. So that is something, I actually haven't been on a sales appointment since that happened. I was off yesterday and then I'm doing this today. I'm assuming that how I need to approach the conversation of reasonable pricing is going to change slightly. I've been through this before. During COVID, people were very cost conscious. They didn't know if markets were going to go up, go down, if the pandemic was going to last forever, if it was going to be 2 weeks. So I've weathered this storm before. What it means to be a reasonably priced contractor is totally up for interpretation. What I always tell people is there's cost and there's price. So a lower price might actually equal higher cost in the long run. And that's because we might have to come back and fix somebody else's low cost mistakes. In terms of pricing for construction, there's going to be tons of people that tell you different things, that there's your labor, your materials, your operating expenses. Those are sort of your cost of goods sold. Then you have your everything else, your top line items. Typically, most roofing contractors in the state of New Jersey will shoot for anywhere between a 35 to 40% gross margin. I know we're talking very technical terms here. Homeowners should expect that a well-run business should shoot for those margins. So even homeowners that do their own research and they go and price out their own materials, they need to realize that the cost of materials is probably 35 to 40% of the overall total of a contract. Then you have your labor costs, and then you have that business's operating expenses. So I would say if a homeowner is pricing out their own materials, if they think they can scrounge up a couple of buddies to do their roof, I don't agree to that, but it's something that people sometimes think. You should probably add whatever your labor and your material cost looks like, another 30 to 40% gross margin on top of that. Most roofs in New Jersey will cost anywhere between $12,000 and $20,000 for a normal size house.
Sure.
Smaller than that and larger than that, you're looking obviously at smaller and larger numbers, but 12 to 20 is about average.
What I would think that now is a little bit of a peak of your season, right? With the weird storms that we get
Yeah,
coming
this
through.
week's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, knock on wood, no hurricanes predicting to come up, but I would think that both happens, the good and the bad. You know, the good happens in the sense that there's resources out there
Yes.
to help the homeowners. The bad is there's a lot of scams
Yes.
that go out there. So what is the advice for people that you would give? You're in the industry, and obviously a very ethical business that you want to make sure you're doing right for the people.
Right.
So what advice would you give them on how to, aside from coming to you, but what advice would you give them on how do they migrate through this? It's so confusing, and especially if you get, I hate to say it, you hear these sad stories about these elderly people that get taken advantage of, right? So how do you vet somebody? How do you vet and know, I get the margins, that's fair, because even if you price it, you may be paying more for a product going to Home Depot or Lowe's or something,
Right, exactly.
versus a contractor that gets a lower price, right, on it. But what advice would you give these businesses or these individuals when they need help? How to vet and realize what's a good quote and what's a scam?
Absolutely. So you just mentioned the word quote. So most roofing contractors or any construction company who is an ethical, well-run company that's backed by contracts will have scopes of work, will have very detailed line items, will tell you what products are going where.
In writing, correct?
In writing,
Yep.
yes. What the name of the material is, what the manufacturers are. If you get a one-page contract from any construction company, they're likely not the type of company that you want to work with. And I explain to people, because sometimes we have customers saying your contracts are too long. And I explain this is not only protecting us, but it's also protecting you, the homeowner. We're not putting these contracts in place 7 to 20 pages is average for us. We're not putting them in place to make anything confusing. We're actually putting them into place to become very black and white.
Or detailed. All the
Detailed,
details,
exactly.
yeah.
And that's why people tell us, thank you for educating us, because not only do we educate in person, but we educate in writing as well. And if there's any confusion, your contract and your scope of work should be the end-all be-all. So if you think as a homeowner you heard your salesperson or the owner of the company say XYZ was going to be included, but you don't see it in writing, that's a very good time to say, hey, I think I heard that you were including this in the scope of work, but I don't see it in writing. Can we revisit that? That's why detailed written contracts and scopes of work are so important for the homeowner, because it protects them against anything that they might have heard, whether it was actually said or not said.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, that's what helps everyone be happy in the long run. The homeowner is happy that they're getting exactly what they thought they were getting. And the construction company owner is doing exactly what the homeowner wants. And that ultimately leads to really good service in the long run. And then in terms of vetting your construction company owners or the companies in general, you're going to want to check the New Jersey Home Improvement Contractors Registration database. You can do that very simply on the New Jersey websites. I'm sure we can drop links somewhere in this program. We can do that. Make sure that the name on the contract matches the name on the registration. What I have seen is people swear up and down they're working with really high quality construction companies, and then they might have changed their name or they're doing a DBA, doing business
bait and
as,
switch.
because they might have had bankruptcies filed in the past. They might have had bad marks with the Better Business Bureau. They might have had all these other reasons that led to a name change. So that is one thing to always look for. Our name on our contracts matches our name on everything relating to our registrations. Specifically for roofing, you also want to make sure that the company is registered and insured for roofing, not just general construction. We are insured for up to 30-foot falls. If you fall from 30 feet, you're likely either seriously injured or you die. I hate to say it, but it hasn't happened to us, but it has happened to people that I know where they have had crew members fall and pass.
And you're talking about the employees.
I'm talking about workers' comp. I'm talking about general liability. We pay 27 cents for every dollar I pay in payroll for our roofing classed employees. So that's why a high quality company is not going to be the lowest cost company. We pay our taxes. We pay 27 cents for every dollar we pay for workers' comp. We pay 6 figures in general liability insurance every single year for roofing. So we have all these expenses that I'm happy to pay because everyone's protected, including our homeowners. God forbid somebody falls. They're not getting sued. The insurance company for that homeowner is not getting sued. It's going to be our general liability and our workers' comp that kicks in because we're properly insured.
Because people don't realize that if somebody goes up on your roof, you hire a contractor and they don't have this type of insurance, they could sue them.
Absolutely. Same thing with plumbers. So a lot of times if you hire a plumber to fix a leaking pipe flange on a roof, because those are plumbing pipes. That's a whole other technical thing we could get into. But sometimes people say, oh, my plumber is going to take care of that. Do you really want your plumber who's not insured for 30-foot falls to get onto your 2-story roof that has a very significant pitch to it? No. And they probably don't want to either. But they might get talked into it, and I can understand sometimes it's hard to say no as a business owner. But no, you don't want your plumber climbing up onto your roof to fix a pipe collar. You want a roofing company that's insured for roofing to go up there. So these are all little nuances, but they're important nuances, because if that person falls off, then that homeowner's insurance is going to have to cover that fall.
Well, that's interesting because you eat all these costs,
Yes.
but also some savings that come into that you pass on to your clients, I would assume. And it's really important for people to know that you can be protected on both sides of it.
Yes.
And just making sure that, so as the homeowner, I have to do my due diligence to make sure that I'm researching the company that I'm working with. How many times do you get people that call you up to fix what somebody else messed up?
More often than I wish happened.
Yeah.
We're actually dealing with something right now where it's been a year in the making, where a homeowner bought a house during COVID, 2021, it was almost 2022. They bought the house, the roof was redone. It wasn't redone. They put a 3rd layer of shingles on this house, which is illegal in New Jersey.
On top of the
On top of the existing roofing.
Okay.
So there was already 2 layers of roofing. They put a 3rd on. In New Jersey, you don't need permits anymore in most municipalities for roofing. That was done away with, I think, 5 or 6 years ago. Every jurisdiction is different, but in more than 90% of locations, you don't need a permit. So what I tell people is when you're buying a house, don't just have a home inspector do your roof inspection, have an actual licensed and insured and registered roofing company do that inspection. And people are always like, oh, but they're home inspectors. Most people are not going to look for the things we do when it comes to roofing. And the roof is what protects your investment. If you have a bad roof, even if it was just redone on a house that you're buying, I would definitely have that roof inspected. I see such shoddy work that is done when a seller rushes to put on a roof to sell their house because they don't care if that roof is not done properly.
It looks good.
It looks good.
Yeah.
And hey, guess what? We're in a little bit of a drought, so it hasn't really rained since they listed their house. And even a leak that just starts now might not show up for 6 months. So it doesn't matter to the sellers in some cases that they get the lowest cost because any future problems are not theirs. So they pass that on to the buyers. And we see so frequently that this is happening, especially when houses were renovated during COVID, that shoddy work was done because people wanted to make the biggest profit possible.
Well, they don't want to pay a whole lot out of their pocket when they're trying to exit, right?
Right, and I can understand that, and I can appreciate that. But I also find it hard to, as an ethical person who's very values oriented, how do people put their head on their pillow at night, knowing that they cut corners and they're purposely passing on future problems to somebody else?
Okay. Well, that goes into your sort of your ethical mission and vision of your business.
Yes, it does.
And you're also part of the National Women in Roofing.
Yes.
So talk about how, obviously it sounds like you're trying to empower other women to perhaps get into this area. What does this association do? What does it do? Is it just for the individuals to try to get them in, or does it also act like a brainstorming session on how you can make inroads and to get into new markets and grow your own company?
All the above.
Okay.
So NWIR is a national organization. It stands for National Women in Roofing. And every trade will have their own national association. And the goal of NWIR is several things, but there's a few different pillars. Education, educating women and our allies on how you get into the industry, but then also technical education. How do you install a roof properly? I was just at GIF last week with some of their senior leadership, learning about how to technically install a commercial roofing system the right way. And this is something that might have been intimidating for me and the 20 other women in the room if we had to approach a manufacturer directly. But NWIR is sort of that liaison between the women in the industry and our suppliers, manufacturers, trade organizations. And it just makes it a lot easier for women and really anyone in the industry to connect with various parties within the industry. So it is one of those organizations that is truly a connector. And yes, they do lobbying and things of that nature down in DC as well, as part of larger roofing trade organizations. But generally, the other big thing that NWIR gives is camaraderie. So I've met women in the industry who have become, I call them my roofing besties. They really are like my best friends who I've developed over the last 2 or 3 years. And all these women work throughout the industry in different capacities. Some of them are in our supply partner locations. So for example, we just completed a hotel job a couple of weeks ago, and I leaned on my relationship with this woman, Christine, who I met several years ago through NWIR to get us a shingle color that wasn't available from any other supplier in New Jersey. She made a couple of phone calls. We shipped in a whole truck worth of green shingles from Pittsburgh in order to do 22,000 square feet of roofing on this hotel. That would not have happened if it wasn't for National Women in Roofing. And those are the types of relationships that we lean on. And I'm sure other people in other trades organizations do something similar, but it makes it a lot easier to connect with other women in the industry.
So do you just do homeowners, or do you do government buildings? Do you do corporate buildings? Is it just residential, or what is your sort of scope of the business?
So we started the business as a residential remodeling company. However, I knew that when I started the company, I eventually wanted to get into commercial. I don't know if we'll ever get into industrial, so your large Amazon warehouses. Sure. I think that's outside of where I think I want to take the company, unless something changes. Well, let's have a conversation in 5 years. But right now, we're suited as a company for any size residential projects, whether it's a small shed in somebody's backyard up to a 20,000 square foot mansion in the middle of Warren County. That's actually a job I'm trying to close with a helicopter pad.
Wow.
So all of those things are within our purview for residential. On the commercial side, we are currently structured for smaller commercial projects. 22,000 square feet doesn't sound small, but in the commercial roofing space that actually is very small. So the ideal projects for us would be small standalone buildings. If there are entrepreneurs watching this, if they need a roof on a small standalone commercial building, we could do that, whether it's shingled roofing or flat roofing. Any sort of a multifamily condo apartment complex that has shingled roofing, those would also be ideal projects for us.
So as you're looking at growing your company and looking at new avenues, what direction are you planning on going to? So it sounds like you don't want to do the big of the big, right? But do you already have your toes dipped into those other waters, or are you just looking into it right now?
I would say that we are in 2025 looking to jump right into those smaller commercial projects more forcefully. Right now, residential runs extremely smoothly. I have my operations and production team. Once a job is sold, it goes right to them. They handle everything. We can do that with our eyes closed. What we can't necessarily do with our eyes closed right now are those commercial jobs, just because we haven't done enough volume to work out all the kinks. And I'll be very transparent about that. But we have the crews and the team ready for that work, and they are extremely experienced. But Maven itself is still trying to get more into that space. In terms of, you mentioned government contracts before, so we're actually going to submit our paperwork for women-owned business certification. So we are 100% women-owned, and I believe our conversation actually revolved around having your agency help us to submit that paperwork, which I want to talk about. We haven't needed the paperwork. I am...
So far.
Yeah. I am 100% women-owned. There's no other partners or owners in the company. So yes, we are. We just don't have the women-owned business certification behind our brand yet. Once that happens, I think it's going to open the doors for government work and for other large corporate work as well. Even if it's maintenance contracts on these massive industrial buildings, like that would be a really good thing for us to sort of go down the path for. But I've got phenomenal partners, actually through National Women in Roofing, that are industrial commercial roofers. So even if it's somebody who calls in and just wants to have a conversation, I can then connect them.
You have those.
Yes, to those partners.
That's awesome. No, and timing is really important. We have a lot of exciting things happening in New Jersey, and to get that certification will be really helpful.
That's good to know.
To again, get your foot in the door, prove yourself once you're in, but get your foot in the door, especially with the diversity study that was released. Ted, construction was highlighted, and it really, really showcased that, you know, in particular, women in construction were not getting their, and I hate saying this word, but fair share of opportunities, right? So, but you have to have that certification to be able to. Yes, that was a conversation we had. I'm really happy. Yes, we could talk about that. But I want to take a step back of what advice would you give other women? I jokingly said you broke the glass ceiling, you know, in this, and there's been other women in it, but it's far and few between. There's so much opportunities. What would your pitch be to women to help them to consider getting into the construction industry, whether it's, you know, there's lots of different avenues that are in there, maybe not be roofing and stuff, but what is the value prop that you can give a pitch to women? Because I think it's really important. One of the reasons why we wanted to have you come on the show is to really show that it's possible. And there's opportunities there, and the doors are wide open if you just want to step through it. And there are resources there to help you, such as us, the NJSBDC, that they can help along that. But what pitch would you give to other women and I'm sure it's not been easy, you know, especially with your circumstances of sort of jumping in both feet, not knowing, is there a bottom to this, you know, or not? But talk to us a little bit about your rallying cry for women.
My rallying cry goes back to financial independence, honestly. So I had to pull my family out of a $200,000 void, and I was scared. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to do that, because I felt like it was my fault that I got us there, and it was my battle to win, to get us out of it. And I don't think I could have done that as quickly as I did in any other industry, honestly. So if there's women who are watching this who feel that they need to increase their paycheck, if they need to increase the financial stability of their household income, if they need a second job and they need to be able to earn money, I want to say quickly, honestly, if you can get up to speed and learn how to sell construction jobs and you do it in a way that's authentic and can connect with the homeowner, you can make a lot of money very quickly. I don't want to tell you how much you can make because it varies by individual.
Sure.
But every single woman that I know who has entered this industry from a different industry doesn't leave this industry because they find a home, not only among the people, but also it secures their own family's financial future in a way that other industries just can't. So my rallying cry is to the women who feel like they don't have the ability to provide for their family that the way that they want to, and this industry can.
So what would be the first steps? Would it be maybe joining the National Women in Roofing or a industry like that? Would that be the best way for people to sort of realize the opportunities that are there? What is the, because obviously there's got to be gaps that get filled. I mean,
Right.
Just being a woman isn't enough. You also have to realize the industry that's growing, right? The opportunities. And you're right, 100% of the time, we're always fixing up homes.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I've got a house that was built in the 40s. God knows I have a lot of work that needs to be done. And you take it in digestible chunks, right?
Yes.
So, is it ideal to consider going into or joining an association to get more information?
Yeah.
And it sounds too that you've made a lot of great relationships and partnerships within that you can collaborate. I do think women collaborate a little bit better. I'll be a little sexist on that one, but is that a good first step for people to go into?
I think so. If you know specifically that you have an interest in roofing, by all means, come and join some of our events at NWIR. We've got chapters all across the United States. So if somebody's watching this online in North Dakota, there might be a chapter closer to that location. But then there's also a national chapter that operates digitally for the people who don't have a physical chapter to join. That's specifically for roofing. Now, there are people who are part of NWIR who are financial experts, for example, somebody who sells various financial products, and she got into it because she was invited by another one of our members, and now she's flown all across the country by other chapters teaching National Women in Roofing ladies how to take care of their finances. Yeah, you might come into all this newfound money because the industry is lucrative. How are you going to manage that money? So it's not just for people who are swinging hammers or who own these construction companies who are executives at these manufacturing companies. It's also for people who want to support the industry. So I would implore people who are like this financial advisor who might have an interest in construction to join trade industry associations, excuse me. The other thing is I recently joined the National Association of Home Builders. So this is an organization specifically for remodelers and for new construction home builders and all the support services that go into that. So there's industries across the United States for all different trades. I would really just do some research and see what might be the best fit for those individuals, or if they wanted to reach out to me, I can sort of give them some guidance and pointers, but definitely start with an association and go to local events.
So you mentioned the financial aspects of it, and I'm a huge advocate. Know your cash flow.
Right.
Know what's coming in, what's going out. Somebody actually told me once, it's like cash flow is like, air in water.
Yes.
You can live without water for a period of time, but you can't live without air.
Right.
So it's like if you don't have cash coming in, you're not going to be able to pay out.
Yes.
And financial literacy is very, very important. So on that aspects of it, the financial planners are really helpful. But to get into it, they also, you were in debt, how do you coach women into saying, okay, you're going to get into some more debt, before you're going to see
Yeah, that's scary.
your revenue, right, that comes in. And it is scary. I mean, you know, a true entrepreneur is a risk taker, right? So they may go without food on their own table because you're paying employees, you know, on that. So how do you help women to get over that fear factor of it?
I don't know if I can help other people get over it, honestly. As somebody who lived it myself, it takes a certain type of person to have lost so much money and want to try it again. I don't think I can coach that. I don't think I can train that. I think that's an inherent personality trait to have that comfortability factor with risk. So I don't know if I can teach people how to become comfortable with risk. What I can teach people, and I have done not only for others but myself, is how to take calculated risks. And I was in the industry for 3 years between July of 2020 and January 2023 as an employee before I started my own business in March of 2023. So I had 3 years of historical data to support my own financial projections. And I spent almost 6 weeks perfecting those financial projections before I ever opened my doors. So I knew who I needed to hire and when. I knew that our sales cycles were going to be higher in certain months and they were going to be lower in other months. So I had, you mentioned cash flow. I had to project how we were going to generate a certain amount of cash for the downturns. I actually came within, I want to say $1,500 of revenue compared to what I thought we would be in year one. It is extremely good. Yeah. And the other thing that I did differently this time around with our successful business rather than my failed business is I'm making unemotional decisions. If you can make non-emotional decisions or decisions rooted in fact, you're likely to be more successful. If you make decisions that are rooted in emotion and are not based on fact whatsoever, you're likely going to end up losing $200,000 like I did the first time. Most successful entrepreneurs haven't only been successful. Right. Most of them have failed.
We have people that work with us that have gone into bankruptcy, and they're some of our best consultants because they know the sort of pitfalls to avoid moving forward.
Exactly. If you can find an advisor or a coach or even just a mentor that has failed and then succeeded, that's who I would take advice from.
That's awesome. So I want to just touch real quick because I would be remiss if I didn't. Employees. So turnover, hiring people, unemployment, even though it's going up slightly, is still fairly low. Right. On it. How has been your industry in construction? It's, there are contractors, there are employees, there are contractors, whatever. How do you mitigate that? How do you ensure you have good people, and how do you vet them too, right?
Hire slow, fire fast. I don't know if you've heard that before, but
I love that.
That is the non-emotional business owner talking. I love people. I would hire everyone if I could, and it's gotten me into trouble hiring the wrong people in the past because I want to believe that every person is going to be a good fit, but the truth is they're not. And we've recently started implementing it's called predictive index. It's a personality assessment that helps to get the right people in the door without having to go through that 90-day, is this person a good fit trial period. You're still going to hire the wrong people eventually, even if you use all of the tools at your disposal. The hardest position for us to hire for is sales. And that's for many reasons. One, my culture is very different than other construction companies. Besides one person on our staff right now, everybody came from outside of the industry. So we've had to train people internally on everything: language, technology, technical resources, things like that. my W-2 employees. So that has been a challenge in and of itself, especially for people coming outside of construction altogether.
And do you do all of this?
All the training?
Yeah.
Yes, but I also lean heavily on our supplier partners and our manufacturing partners.
Okay.
They have great training programs for product knowledge specifically. But sales training, marketing training, general how to be a good person training, how to be the person that we need you to be based on our culture, that's all done in-house. But hiring salespeople is probably the hardest because I don't want a pushy salesperson. I don't want your vacuum salesperson that goes door to door. I want a person who cares about other people and would rather walk away from a sale than closing that business if it was better in the long run for that homeowner. And we have walked away from jobs where we tell people, look, you don't need a new roof. You really don't. It's fine. It's 25 years old, but wait 2 years. You don't need it right now. We've also told people who have 15-year-old roofs who think that it's perfectly fine, no, the person who did this roof did it wrong. And I've walked away from those as well because they're not willing to do a replacement. They only want to repair.
Sure.
That might be good for them, but it's not good for us because how am I going to warrant work on a repair if the underlying work was done wrong?
And you warranty your work.
We do.
Yeah.
We warranty our repairs and we warranty our replacements. So.
No, and that is challenging. And I guess, again, salespeople probably come and go. I would assume that that's
the
probably the
highest
higher turnover. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a fast pace and it's probably daunting, you know.
It is.
So just taking a step back of how would you gauge success? You know, how.
In sales specifically?
Or just even your company. How do you gauge success for your company? Is it the right people that you have in place? Is it getting the right jobs that, you know, are there new avenues that you think is really going to gauge your success on this? So, you know, you, Amanda, how would you, and it's your company, so you can gauge it however you want.
Right, that's a really good question. Nobody's asked me that since I started the business. Obviously, still being in business 18 months later, that's success.
Sure.
I forget the exact statistic, but for roofing companies, within 5 years, over 80% fail.
Wow.
And I think the 10-year mark of those 20% that lasted 5 years, I want to say more than 60 or 70% of those businesses fail. So at the 10-year mark, something like 5% of businesses in the roofing industry are still existing. So I would call that thinning out the herd. Yes, I would say I'm 1/5 of the way there. But for us, as having been an entrepreneur of a failed business and now being the owner of a successful business, cash flow for sure is probably tactically the number one data point that I use for success. I haven't had to take out any loans. I haven't had to take out any lines of credit. I didn't borrow any money when I started the business because I was very specific about our forecast. I knew when to start the business. I knew that starting in the spring was a good idea because that's when most people start thinking about their projects for the year.
Sure.
So I set myself up for success based on data, not on emotion. So that right there is success for me, making non-emotional decisions, having cash flow to cover any unexpected or unforeseen circumstances. I would say that hiring the right people, my core people, not our salespeople, but our core people, production, operations, admin, nobody's left. All those people are still with me. My salespeople, I don't have an original one left. I'm still struggling to hire for that, so I wouldn't say I'm successful in that realm. And then also,
so for the audience, there's opportunities.
Yes.
Yeah. Amanda's hiring.
Sell me on you. I am hiring actually for sales. And I would say the other determiner of success is just where I think we're going and how we've doubled, we might even triple some of our business this year. All signs, all data points point to a successful short-term future.
But I think you're unique too because you are using data, and not everybody uses data.
Especially in the construction industry.
Yeah, well,
they see money in their bank, they think they're successful. Then they forget about taxes.
Well, and that, well, right. I mean, how much do I set aside?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And oh my God, this bill is coming and I didn't bank on this.
Right.
Literally didn't bank on
Right.
this.
So for example, we set up what are called job accounts with our suppliers for really big jobs where we have to purchase almost 6 figures of material. So when you set up a job account, your terms go from 30 days to 60 days. I just paid off one of our job accounts in 15 days instead of 60 days because of our cash flow. And I know that in the middle of August, we're going to have more cash coming in now than we will in 45 days because the weather is unpredictable in the fall. Last year, we roofed almost 100% of the days that were available in the fall. But the fall tends to be very wet. It tends to ebb and flow in terms of temperature. So I knew that if I could pay off that job account now and not worry about paying it off in 45 additional days, it made more sense. But that was a data-driven decision. That wasn't an emotional decision like, oh, I want to hold on to my cash. No, use the cash I have now to pay off what I owe now so that I set myself up for the winter even better.
That's amazing. Yeah, I wish you're an ideal client for us because it's like you do know how, and again, you talk about, I think you mentioned predictive index, that you use that for the hiring purposes and all of that. Not everybody thinks about that because they think, I know the type of person or temperament that I need, but sometimes people
That's
are
emotional.
It is emotional, and sometimes people are their own best salespeople, and so they sort of project a different persona as you're going in, and then when you get them actually hired, it's a little bit of a different story.
And I would say that is where I've had to take a step back and really lean on advisors because I am our best salesperson. And I say that with a degree of certainty because if you look at our books and we break it out by salesperson, I generate the most revenue. If I hired another me, that would be a terrible decision. I would not be able to work with that person. I just know that about myself.
Sure.
So my advisor from Predictive Index, we mapped out the perfect personality to bring into our organization. We haven't found that person yet, but I know that yes, at the surface, hiring another me would be great, but working with that person wouldn't be.
Sure.
You need to weigh the pros and cons of certain personality traits, and we're even getting to the point now where we know that this person, although they need to be outgoing, they can't dominate conversation. Because if they just like to hear themselves talk, they're never going to be able to consultatively sell the way that we need them to.
Well, they're not going to build a relationship with and it sounds like your company is all about, I hate to say relationships, but it's about that connection.
Oh,
it's
100%.
It's about the trust, and quality. So trust comes first, then quality, and then prove it, right? And show it through your actions.
Right.
And so I commend you for that because you don't necessarily, a lot of times people just see the dollar sign and they're like, oh, that's a big job. Even though it's fixing an error of somebody else, they're going to take it anyway because they want the money.
Right.
That comes in.
Right.
And I commend you on your ethical, business practices because not everybody will do that because they look at the cash flow, right? But not everybody looks at data like you look at data.
Right.
So I think that's amazing. And words of advice for people, as we wrap up, because I could have this conversation with you forever, right? Because this is great. But, just as sort of like highlights of bringing in using data, get advice from others. Don't be afraid to hire somebody, not you.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And I'm the same exact way. I don't need another me. I need somebody that wants to do the stuff I don't like to do.
Exactly.
Right?
Or you're not inherently good at.
That's right. So any other advice that you would give for women in particular to get in the industry or any industry, we'll just say that, because quite honestly,
Making a pivot?
Yeah, but all of your practices can be applicable to any industry. It doesn't have to just be construction.
No.
You still have to learn the trade, whatever that is.
Right.
You still have to be vested. You still have to have passion for it. You have to believe in it. What else would you tell people or women in general, tell them to really consider as they're looking to pivot?
Right. So something that I have struggled with moving into this industry was what I thought people thought about me. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, and I don't know if people didn't buy from me back in 2020 through now for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't trust that a woman knew what she was talking about or whatever.
Sure.
But what I spent a lot of time doing very early on was absorbing as much product knowledge, as much technical knowledge that I could, because I knew that if I could prove that I knew what I was talking about, I could get over any hurdle. I knew I can connect with people. That I've got that. That's not a issue. But connection only goes so far.
Sure.
You're going to meet somebody that is going to poke and prod because they think you don't know what you're talking about. And if you trust your own self enough where whether somebody corners you in an elevator for 5 minutes talking about, hey, let's talk about ventilation on that roofing system, or whatever other specific technical area of expertise they're prodding about, if you're confident enough about that technical information, you can get through any conversation. So what I always recommend to anybody getting into our industry specifically, hyper consume content. Anything relating to product or technical expertise needs to be hyper consumed.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for having this conversation with us today and letting our audience know the sky's the limit.
It really is.
You know, and don't be afraid to break that glass ceiling. You know, so thank you, Amanda. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll get the information out, and I'm going to look forward to having a conversation with you on that certification stuff.
We absolutely will.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning into this conversation with Amanda. To support this podcast, please subscribe and visit us at njsbdc.com for no-cost small business consulting, training, and resources. But remember, we're here to empower you every step of the way, and we will see you next time.